Hello, everyone. It's Rafael Gutierrez. Today, I'm actually doing a couple things. One is I'm checking out how the live stream works. I am hoping to do a lecture on skin, mainly skin for martial artists, but it'll actually work for anyone who's studying skin on December 7th at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The reason I'm doing it at 3 p.m. on Saturday is so many people who are interested can actually come in and actually watch the video and hopefully ask questions. I am hoping to allow anyone who's interested in this to be able to participate and ask questions. So if you are, please remember that there might be people who are young. So don't get yourself kicked off. Make sure what you say is appropriate. It is skin, so it shouldn't be too bad. I will mention that when I do this, it's not going to be at the same level that I would teach, let's say, a anatomy class. And the reason is, if you were to take an anatomy class, usually you would have taken general bio. A lot of people haven't taken general bio since they were in elementary school or high school. And so it really, if I went too far, it would actually lose some people. Not everyone. I mean, I've actually noticed that many of the people who watch us actually do have a high level of education. But I am going to mention that, yes, it will be a little lower than I would teach an anatomy class. I am going to welcome questions, and I am going to talk about pretty much the knuckle pads. So if you're in martial arts and I want to get knuckle pads, we'll talk a little bit about that. As I am doing it live, I wanted to prepare by just talking about something, a documentary, which I actually enjoyed. There are good and bad things to pretty much everything, and so I'm going to mention some of those things. And the documentary is Game Changers, which I've seen it mentioned in a lot of martial arts circles. I've seen some people really criticize it. I've seen some people just love it. I tend to be more in the middle. I do think it was a good documentary, but there are issues with everything, and I will mention that as I go on. First, the good things. One of the big things that this video does is it talks about how a low-fat diet is beneficial. There's a lot of evidence out there everywhere, and they do point out a lot of it. They also mention that a vegan can be a competitive athlete. They actually show a couple really high-level athletes who are vegan. It also does something else, and it's a question that I get all the time when I've taught anatomy before I even get a chance to speak, and that is, well, can vegans get all the amino acids they need? Now, the truth is, people talk about proteins, but proteins really don't matter. It's amino acids which are the building block, and there's a video on the 10 essential amino acids. If you're interested, you can go to nutrition and find it there. It does actually talk a lot about the benefits of a plant-based diet. For instance, having a high level of fiber, having low fat. These are actually good things. If you actually take, for instance, some fat in even the fattiest type of unprocessed vegetation, and you compare it to the fat of a typical meat, you will have less fat just because of what's in there. So those are actually a lot of the good things. The other big thing, which I actually found really worthwhile and made me think a lot, was when they point out the ecological effect of a high protein diet. And so that's actually, like I said, it actually got me thinking, look, do I really need to eat as much meat as I used to? I mean, it's not good for your health and it's not good for the planet. And it does really bring awareness to that. Now, there are some stuff that I didn't like, and some of it is just things that, because of the way I look at the world, some of you may have find it different. But one of the things I didn't like is they didn't really get the biochemistry right. What I mean is they didn't talk about how you have to, if you are a vegan, you have to balance your food. A lot of stuff they didn't seem to talk about how, for instance, beans may actually have a lot of protein, a lot of amino acids, but are missing a couple. Rice have some amino acids and actually can complement the beans. So you have beans and rice, you have a full, complete meal. So that's one of the things that bothered me. The other was a burrito experiment that they show. Now, what they show is they show a vegan burrito, and then they compare it to what seemed to be a typical burrito. The problem with this is you're comparing apples to oranges. What I mean is, if they would have actually gone and made a low fat burrito using animal products and low fat burrito using plant products, and showed us that everything was equal, that would have been something good. They didn't, and so to me, it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. That again doesn't really talk about a lot of. It doesn't say that it was a bad video. It just means that there's some stuff I would have preferred to look at. Like I said, I actually think it was a good documentary. The other thing that kind of bothered me is that they didn't mention blue zones. Now, I know that this wasn't meant to point out blue zone, but the idea with the blue zones is these are the places where people are living longer, happier, healthier lives, usually have low incidence of heart problems and a lot of other problems. And so it would have been a good thing to actually look at the diet. And I think part of the reason they may not have is out of the 5 known blue zones, the only one that's really known for being vegetarian is Loma Linda, which is pretty much their diet is based on the Seventh-day Advents. It's a big place for Seventh-day Advents, and they do have probably one of the best diets in the U.S. I'm not religious, but I can actually look at the facts and point out that religion is doing diet correctly. And so those were actually a couple of things. Now, they actually mentioned, yes, vegan, it is a good thing, and I'm not going to say that it's not. But when you actually look at the blue zones, you do see that most blue zones do have a little bit of meat. Not overwhelming. It's not the amount of meat most of us eat. Even if we cut back our meat, most of us are eating too much meat, which ends up giving problems. But it did have this bias for going vegan, and that's not necessarily an issue. The truth is, any video you watch, anytime someone talks, it will have bias. Even if it's peer reviewed, you will have some bias based on what you believe, whether you try to eliminate it completely or not. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll probably say, well, there is bias in all my videos. I try to avoid it, and sometimes being biased, and I try to see if I'm correct, I find out I'm wrong and actually learn something, and I actually enjoy that. So overall, what I did think about it is I thought it was a good video. It did have its biases. I don't think the bias in the video actually affects it in any way. It doesn't change the fact that it is a good video. There was a lot of stuff on anecdotal evidence, which usually it was asking someone, well, how do you feel after this? I'm not a big thing on asking people how they feel, because I feel that blood work, blood results, numbers are actually more important. People can feel great from doing anything, and you can actually ask some people, give them a steak and ask them how they feel, and they'll say, I feel better after eating. It doesn't mean anything to me. Numbers actually are things that you can't really rely on. The other thing I actually did not like is they showed a lot of vegan processed foods. Now, that in itself may not be an issue, but one of the things I've noticed is all processed foods have issues to it. What I mean is, and I'll actually go into my experience. When I did decide I needed to cut back on the amount of fat that I had in my diet, I looked at some of the plant-based meats that were out there, the fake meats that are supposed to taste like meat. And I was really proud of myself because, wow, I'm eating this and it's supposed to be good. And then when I actually looked at the chemical breakdown, I was better off eating regular ground beef. It wasn't as healthy. The fake meat wasn't as healthy as a real meat. Now, I'm sure that there are 100 different types of fake meats, and one of them may be better. But as we sit right now, there's really not that big of a difference. I will also mention one of my biases. I am a big better living through technology, and I am waiting for certain things that are going to be coming out, which I think are going to really revolutionize our diet. So one of the big things that I will notice is pretty much any processed food. Anytime you process food too much, you lose a lot of the benefits of it. Yes, a plant-based diet, or getting most of your calories from plant-based diets is ideal. But if you're actually taking the plant-based diet and you're breaking apart, processing it, you will lose a lot of the fiber. A lot of times, you will lose a lot of the things that make the plant beneficial. And so, a lot of times, what I would actually tell people is, watch this video, learn from it. Try to understand what's going on, but do your own research. Yes, plant-based diets do help in cholesterol levels. They do helping overall health. And it seems like I'm saying this is a great video. I do think it was actually a great video. It was well done. But there are issues that everyone will always have with something, right? So again, I am trying to do this with the live to see how it actually comes out. I'm checking out the sound, seeing if there's anything I need to do. Because on December 7th, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I am going to do the video on skin. I will be doing a lot of drawing. You might see the back of my head a lot. And so I'm just hoping that I can get the live video working properly before then. If you are interested, please show up. You actually are going to be able to ask questions. And well, I guess I'll just say have a nice day. How's that sound?